Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain also.
Well, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Nigeria. That's Ayomakide. This is Kayode Okikelu.
And this is Sunrise Daily.
Absolutely. Anything can happen, right?
Well, you know, that thing that you say about Lagos, you know, it's welcome to this state, wherever, but this is Lagos. So this is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayomakide. Good morning and welcome.
Okay, what's going on with the introductions this morning? It's Abuja here. Yes, I'm in Abuja in the Federal Capital Territory. And I always have to keep emphasizing this because the people who see me and still say, oh, I didn't know you had moved here. Hey, I've moved here at least 6 years now. Oh, well. Good morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, and welcome to Sunrise Daily.
In fact, I also wonder why they keep telling me, I didn't know you were still in Lagos. What's wrong with people these days, man? What is wrong with people?
Chamberlain, you're in Lagos.
Should we find a way to probe that particular statement?
That question, right?
What kind of house would you even be living in if you moved to Abuja?
The house, regular house everybody lives in.
How are you going to get it?
Not the politician style. But then what house?
And I think it's on the back of the housing deficit, which we have always talked about in Nigeria. I mean, yes, we know our... Do we know our population, actually? I think that's a conversation for another day.
Well, if you go to NPC website, you will find a number.
Now, that's based
National
on
Population. Well, it is a number.
The last time we had a census was over 10 years ago.
It's a number on the National Population Commission website.
Okay, I see where this is going. But
the
point is, first, we have projections, yes, but we've not done our census in over 10 years.
And projections would not suffice, really.
Exactly.
What about the death rate, the birth rate? All of those things have got to, you need the real thing.
Absolutely, because you need to plan with those things. Plan for housing,
that's
plan
the
for
essence.
Infrastructure, and so many things. And I mean, I think a typical example of how planning or how not knowing how many we are and knowing how to prepare for them, a typical example is here in Lagos. And we had our correspondent go out to investigate this housing scam, in quote. You know how much housing deficit is in Lagos and how much people actually scramble for houses. I recall we were talking about agents and what they make people go through. So essentially we went out to see for ourselves what's happening, and what our correspondent found out was very heartbreaking, really. You had people who had paid, actually, for a certain property to be developed. So they paid up front, right? So they expected that at least they had a slot. They tried to do this balloting thing. And this house was developed eventually, but people did not get anything at the end of the day. In fact, what blew my mind most was that at some point, one of those people who had paid said the developer or the agent threw the few keys he had. He just threw it.
Whoa.
You know.
Like a bouquet?
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
Whoever picks it has the house, and in fact, some people picked more than one. Picked two, sold it to others, and it's just mind-blowing. People have paid, and you wonder about regulatory, agencies. And this is coming at a time where you see, very expensive real estate coming up at places that you never thought that there would be buildings, being sandfilled, and you see those high-rise being sold for ridiculous amount. Ridiculous to some people, okay to some others, but majority it is ridiculous. So how about we take all of that investment and try to provide housing for the millions that need it in Lagos? I don't know. That makes sense, right?
Which is big. It's really huge. And a lot of, there's usually lots of pressure about all of these things, especially when you see that do we have any credit system, really? People are usually under a lot of pressure. You have to pay, not small, I would say, but now. And in big chunks. That's why almost everything requires you to do that. So that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. Why people want to just dip their hands into certain things and ensure that, they also go with the Joneses. But we'll try and get a lot more details about the law, the bill that Lagos State government signed into law yesterday. Yeah, to see how they could also regulate some of these things so that people don't fall prey to this kind of antics, because look, no matter how you look at it, if you don't look, so many things will happen. So those kind of things, they happen. So yes, credit to governors and presidents previously or now who have tried to do something about all of that, but we clearly need to do more.
Well, you talked about the deficit. Lagos State, I think, came up with this document that says they need something in the region of 2.5 million housing units to bridge the deficit in Lagos. That's what Lagos according to government needs. And
I don't know what we need at the national level.
At the
because I
national
know
level,
the minister said the figures that they were binding for years. He says, no, where did we even get that? So,
I think...
unless I missed something.
Oh, no, you didn't miss it. I think the challenge with the housing unit per the nation is, just as Kayode began, look, there is a lot of enumeration that needs to be done. How many houses do we need? How many people need houses? You remember the time that we said that we need X number of meters, and I'm wondering, you mean for 200 million people or thereabouts, we only need, what, 1 million meters? That's all we need? And I'm yet to, come to terms with that one. For accommodation, for where people live alone, we will need quite a number. How about the ministries, departments, and agencies? That's another, conversation altogether. Now, to the housing issue that we are raising here, how many of those houses are occupied or not? Look at the situation that people have found themselves. And this is just one example. For God's sake, there are several that have not being captured in any news and that will never be captured in any news. I remember a close ally who came to me once and said, look, they said he paid for an accommodation. They went there only to find out that something in the region of 200 people paid for the same single accommodation. 200 people.
No way.
That's the truth. Wow. They came, they besieged that house. Well, of course, what happened to the developer? He eloped. So, but speaking to the regulations that can help people not fall scams to these kinds of things, Jimberlin, when you take office, when you apply to become president, governor, commissioner, you have a lot of work on your hands. And sincerely, God help you. Papa.
Indeed, God help you. But while God is helping whoever it is that says they want to, the cap fits them and they want to take on other people's burdens, we should also ask ourselves how people are falling prey to this sort of antics. I'm not going to blame the people because really people are desperate, and when they see something, but sometimes if it's too good to be true, then the chances are very high that it is indeed too good to be true. When you sometimes, when you see a property being developed for a certain price in Lagos, for instance, or you hear that you're going to be renting something because you know that properties are priced according to location many times in Lagos, and you hear that the sum is too good to be true, you have to double check it. What is going on here? And in the case where you say pay a deposit and come back later, nowadays your suspicion index has to be very high, because if we're now in a situation whereby the hunter is learning to shoot without missing, then the bird has to learn to fly without perching. That's where we currently are at. We now have to find a way to protect ourselves as consumers. I'm happy to hear that the Lagos State government has now signed something. I think I saw it yesterday on the news to regulate the real estate industry, to know developers should know what is expected of them. And there are many instances whereby developers, continue to shortchange the people who they claim they want to sell property to. What usually happens is, they might build a model or two of what they intend to develop in a particular area. All of you come out and check it out and say, oh, I think this is the kind of sample I'd like to live in. And then you go and you put your money there, perhaps a part payment, and then you now see that what they now begin to develop, in many spaces. And this is without prejudice to developers who are really doing their best and doing a good job. But many more developers are not doing a good job. Many more. Maybe for everyone that is trying his or her best, there'll be like 10 more, not 20 more, trying to scam people, if not, excuse me, scam them by not giving them their property. It will be that they are shortchanging them with the quality of houses that they build, or that, they do not fully implement all that they said that they would implement in a space. I know that it's not only Lagos that is affected. Here in Abuja, even though there are arguments as to whether or not we have a deficit, because you see many estates here in the Federal Capital Territory not occupied. Houses literally begging for people to come and stay in them. And you now see that millions of people are coming from outside of the FCT every day, from the satellite towns, because they cannot afford the accommodation that is inside the FCT. So there are questions as to, is it really a deficit or a deficit of what people can afford? That's the big question. We really need to ask ourselves hard and deep questions around housing. And I keep saying that if we're going to continue to make our young people stay here in Nigeria, we must make sure that we have things that will continue to, I don't want to say tie them down, but at least things that they can look forward to say, if I stay here in the country, at least I am assured that if I have a steady job, at least I can afford not just rent, but eventually own my own property. I know that there are a few schemes, but the schemes are too few and they're too unreachable for the number of people who really want to own houses. So in this situation whereby people have been scammed, I do not know what sort of remedy will work for them, and whether any agency is looking at getting redress for them. If they are, that will be very heartwarming indeed. But whilst the agencies try to strengthen themselves, the institutions try to strengthen themselves, I think that in the meantime, consumers must be very aware and seek ways to better protect themselves. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, indeed. Well said, everyone. So we're looking to see what happens. But in the meantime, I don't know if you can ever be too careful, but you just have to do what you can while you can. So there you go. We'll come right back at you with the headlines in a moment. Welcome back. We'll start with the Guardian newspaper today. Fuel scarcity, panic buying in Lagos as NATO threatens strike. Yeah, we were talking about that in Abuja last time out, and now in Lagos. So now maybe we'll learn not to count our chicks. Count your eggs for the hatch, right?
So they were listening and said, "No worry, you'll see next week."
Oh dear.
But what's NATO, by the way? I know NATO. It's on my board. But you know what, the details. All right, this is the inside pages.
But artificial scarcity caused by recall of dirty petrol, source claims. Don't know if you saw all of those circulating yesterday. It was really circulating. They said that a certain agency that imports fuel got content that was very high with sulfur content.
Whoa.
And as such, it damaged vehicles, which is not, it's happened several times. And then they said, for those who moved around, if you got to any station that they flagged you off and said, no, we don't have any products, they are affected. They listed the names of those outlets that had it, but, of course, you can't name some of those. So they thought that that's why this challenge is. And so there was that instruction that came through that do not buy any of those. So those who got from that particular supply were all affected. So, and then it turns out that those names, in terms of those outlets, the brands that were affected, not all of them, just some outlets. And so it was always difficult to see which one. So perhaps That's just what's been speculated.
If that is the
out there.
case, I mean, as you would also say, always say here, let there be investigation. If that is the case, the investigation should begin from the ports. I want to believe with all my heart that there is a quality checking system. There's a standard system. How they got through the ports, someone needs to answer some
Guard your heart
questions.
jealously, because sometimes if you don't want to suffer heartbreak, when you believe with all your heart, it's dangerous. On certain matters.
Well, there's a government agency responsible for that.
Exactly.
Really.
There are some individuals that signed off and said, this quality is good for Nigeria.
Yeah,
think
that's
it's-
what it is. That's what it should be.
The NMDPRA, so the PPRA, that's the midstream, downstream regulatory authority. That's the authority, not the commission. So I think there should be answers to that one.
Absolutely. And if you thought that you heard the last of it, NATO to withdraw haulage services over diesel price, haulage services over diesel price operation cost. So you just when you think you have all this figured out, then you see new ones.
Wherever you turn, seems to be different challenges in the sector.
By the way, NATO is
Rest my case.
road transport owners.
Okay. So there you go. NATO, road transport owners, not
And then there's NURTW.
not the Atlantic Treaty.
Wait, there's
National
those transport
Union.
workers and transport owners. So what about transport users? We the people.
Here we are. We need to have it. Chamberlain, where you can be the president of
What?
this.
Say what? I can't do that with all my heart.
Road transport users.
Like he will.
Now too. That would be interesting. Oh dear, we just hope the queues go away. Well, let's take a look at Vanguard for you. And the focus is on 2023. And this is what we have. Nation's mood will decide our presidential candidate, says PDP source. Adds North only ruled for 2 years during PDP's reign. Zoning's a knotty issue. That's K-N-O-T-T-Y.
It's always not. Whenever it comes to that, then they bring all sorts of things. It's not the issue. Huh.
Gosh. You see, more riders will cross the river when we get to the bridge. PDP leader. Confirmation of Gumusa's INEC commissioner. A coup against democracy. So it looks like the PDP has finally spoken up about this as a collective unit. It's a page 5 read, but it's quite interesting when it says the nation's mood will decide our presidential candidates. So I imagine the mood will, influence people who will then go out to vote. But essentially, page 5.
So the
gives you
mood
details.
is going to determine when, and then you now start marketing to us based on that mood. So when the mood changes,
Just realized, wait a minute, I promised what I couldn't fulfill. So let's keep our eyes open, essentially. And that's why we'll be focusing on this leadership question, so Nigerians know what questions to ask and all. There's a picture of the fuel queues resurfacing in Lagos, by the way. And on top of the nameplate, you see adulteration responsible for fuel scarcity. That's according to an investigation. So it's a page 21 read this morning. There's Mr. and Mrs., by the way. Might interest you, but just on top of that, very sad one. Bandits kill 44 villagers in Niger State. So Islam is very much with us. 44, by the way, that's 44 people. Really sad. Sports on the back page. Amanike takes over Super Eagles from Iguavoin. So yeah, that's one of the lead stories on the back page, sports. And Mane wakes up in bed with AFCON trophy. I'm not going to say anything about that one. Let's leave it there for Vanguard.
Daily Trust newspaper, I don't know what to make of this, but that's what you have on the front pages. Why 104 more ISWAP fighters surrendered. Worth probing? Check the details on page 4. Terrorists likely behind Okene police station attack. Find out who said that. Abductors of Kaduna Catholic priest demand 60 million. The details you'll find on the inside pages, and of course you find some picture. That picture on the front page is to the lead story. And now right under that one, you find that one, 2023, expect enormous challenges. Sanusi tells presidential aspirants. Nigerian politicians put the cart before the horse. Subscribe to carry. Wike meets McCarthy, rules out zoning in PDP. The story is on page 4. Electoral bill. I'll advise Buhari against assent. If. Who said that? Of course, the Attorney General. Find the story on page 13. And there's this one, guys. Stories on page 20. Reps demand probe of 45 million accounts not linked to BVN.
45 million.
45 million accounts not linked to BVN.
So how are these accounts functioning then?
How long have they not been linked with BVN?
Clearly
How
not.
long have they known it's not been linked to BVN? Is CBN aware they're not linked to BVN?
Oh.
Did the banks do the due diligence and forward the details that they've not been linked to BVN? So if they all knew, are they not all accomplices? Are they not complicit in this matter?
Believe it or not, the probe has begun right here, right here in the studio.
But really, the issues that Chimele raised, they
The
are
questions.
actually quite genuine, because there are people who are pressured into, who have lost businesses simply because they lost contracts, lost
can't breathe
opportunities, simply
without
because
doing all
they do
of
not
this.
have any link.
And then
of their
now you
BVN
have some people
accounts.
who don't have it.
45 million accounts. Find out the details on page 20. It's reps.
This is not 1 million. Wait, did you say 45 million? Not 45,000.
What does 45M mean?
I guess million. Wow. But really, that's outrageous. Sounds outrageous.
This is ridiculous.
Well,
In the same country?
We'll have to wait.
I feel like taking that as the rest of the paper review this morning.
I'll see what Bakwe says to that one.
What there's a reps demand probe. In other words, it's not the reps that are probing. They're demanding a probe. So whose job is it to probe? That's another conversation altogether. I think we'll leave it there for the Daily Trust newspaper.
Well, the reps had a lot up their sleeves yesterday. Not only were they asking for a probe of the 45 million accounts not linked to BVN. Chamberlain, just to calm you down a bit, it doesn't mean that the people who own those accounts are operating them. It just means that people haven't gone to go and link their current BVN with those accounts. So I don't want to say that they're dormant, but that they're not being... well, maybe I'm making an assumption. Maybe I shouldn't hold forth. But I assume, and I think rightly so too, that if your account doesn't have a BVN, you cannot operate it. That's the simple rule, unless there are, rules for other people. They also had up their sleeves yesterday this probe around unclaimed dividends. The reps are also looking into unclaimed dividends because they want to use that money to offset the deficit of the federal government. Now, I know that the Securities and Exchange Commission has been trying to get people who have accounts with unclaimed dividends to go and claim their dividends. But sometimes the process is so Herculean and so difficult that people still cannot surmount some of the hurdles, especially if their loved ones or the people who own them are dead. So there's still questions in there, but right now they're eyeing unclaimed dividends. So if you have unclaimed dividends and you know you do have unclaimed dividends, please do everything in your power to go and get your money. Otherwise, the federal government might use it to settle the debts of the country. Look at this one from the Abuja Inquirer. We're going to be having council polls here in the FCT very soon. It's certainly something to watch out for. Why? Because the FCT polls are the only polls, like I say, statewide polls that INEC conducts. So I think sometimes, people have called on INEC to take on other elections apart from the ones it conducts at the federal level. They wanted to be able to do state house, I think it does state house of assembly, but local council elections, very much like it does for the FCT. Well, let us see what the results will be first for this particular poll. That is the focus here. FCT Council Poll. 473 candidates jostle for 68 positions with only 8.9% female participation. So that is on the front page this morning for the Abuja Inquirer. FGM, Southeast, West lead as UNICEF worry over rise. That's female genital mutilation, just in case you're wondering what FGM means. It's on page 3 of the paper. You have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate. Abuja at 46, yes? The Federal Capital Territory is 46 years old. The dreams, strides, challenges. It's on page 12 of the paper. Yahoo, Yahoo, what parents, governments, religious bodies can do. It's somebody speaking. on page 15. I think in addition to that, perhaps also talk about this increase in ritual murders. It's becoming very... COVID-19, FCT records 100% deaths among unvaccinated. It's on page 5. Amidst cash crunch, federal government jerks DTA for civil servants is on page 11 of the paper. And you also have a story on politics, Annie Wellington, why I want to succeed Udom Emmanuel. So that's certainly about Akwa Ibom. They also have sports on the back page for you. You might want to flip to the back page to see that Salah whips as Mane lifts AFCON. That's what we already have. So let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
All right, take a look at Daily Times next. They also lead with a similar story, as you've seen in one of the other papers. There you go. Nigeria is living on extra time, Sanusi warns. So that extra time, of course, you know you have to read between the lines. Predicts the country will face more difficult time next year. Says Nigeria needs competent leaders, not money bags in 2023. Does any money bag come to your mind when you see this kind of headline?
Do they carry money in bags these days?
You know what they say, a bird can fly over your head, but when you let it land. So ideas can come through your mind, but you know, you can process it whichever way you want it.
I mean, getting people elected. I was reading a report that said it costs, what, is it $2 billion in Nigeria for a person to be president? I mean, the whole process. So, I mean, whether you like it or not, there will be a lot of money involved. And I'm even saying legally, but we know that some of these things happen. There's a lot of money involved. So, I mean, can you really separate money from politics?
Very tough ask. Very tough ask.
Can
In fact, it's
you?
almost like you can't.
Can you? Yes.
Okay.
No, you can't.
Will we? That's the question.
I don't think we can. We can't separate it. Globally, you can't. But maybe the type of money, the amount of money, may be the issue. But you can't separate money from
Okay, well, if it's money for printing billboards and flyers, yes, you can.
It's not the money you have
Let's
to
be
now pay
realistic
back
here.
when you become the leader with
Exactly.
contract and
Exactly.
sorting people, because that's where you get the problems.
That happens. But how we manage all of those, that's a big issue. How we manage them. We're not the first people to do elections in the world. Why not? Doesn't India, look at population of India. How many times do you hear about issues with elections and things like that? What's our population? Oh, come on, guys.
You know, elections are quite interesting in India. It's not a one-day affair. It's weeks or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But speaking of elections, the front page of the leadership will interest you. It's something that we have focused on, and we're not just taking our eyes off it yet. 7-day ultimatum by CSOs expires. PMB yet to sign electoral bill. That's the leadership newspaper's front page. There you go. This morning. It's a page 4 read. So, I mean, CSOs, even though some of them said, well, we didn't quite give that ultimatum, but yes, it's fitting. 7 days is fair enough. But I recall the AGF saying that that document just got to his table yesterday afternoon.
Well, it's one of the riders.
Oh, okay. There you go. He was on Politics Today yesterday, saying he just got a copy of the bill, says Malami. IPAC stakeholders expressed concern over delayed presidential assent. Mr. President has no excuse this time. Who's saying that? Well, page 4 has more details, but this one might even shock you as well. ASU mobilizes for strike over disagreement with FG. Maybe not shock you, seeing that strikes are not new, but I mean, it's disappointing and sad. It's a page 7 read. I'll leave it there for the leadership.
Nigerian News Direct very quickly. Lawmakers probe banks over 1.2 trillion naira unclaimed funds. Well, Malakwe has warned you, go get your money otherwise. The unclaimed 1.2 trillion naira. Did we, that report, about 45 million, accounts, is this part of the funds?
Please, just leave people's money, please.
Well, that's the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Hush Puppy, FG, US discussing extradition of Abba Kyari as ascribed to the Attorney General.
Okay, so there you go. That is it with a look at some of the dailies here today. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, we're turning our attention to Zamfara State. Some political developments going in there. Some news making the rounds that there are plans to impeach the deputy governor. We're going to find out why the House, the State Assembly, seems bent on that one. This morning, we've got Yusuf Idris, who is the Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. He joins us from Gusau. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today. So could you tell us what is going on about this news making the rounds of plans to impeach the deputy governor of the state?
Well, I want to make it clear we are not planning to impeach the deputy governor. Rather, the State Assembly is exercising its powers as vested on it by the Constitution to remove either the governor or deputy governor by the provision of the Constitution of Section 188 of the Constitution of the Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. So we are not planning for his impeachment. Rather, the House is taking all the necessary steps as being contained in the Nigerian Constitution, which I'm not speaking on behalf of the House of Assembly, neither the Zamfara State Government, but I'm speaking on behalf of the Progressives Congress, the party in power in Zamfara State. As you know, the deputy governor, as the name implies, is supposed to deputize the governor in affairs of the state. And everybody knows initially things started very well between the two. But of a sudden, the deputy governor started misbehaving because the governor decided to change his political party, which I think the governor has the right to join any political party of his interest at any time, as provided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the House of Assembly, as you know, is accusing the deputy governor of about 3 things. That is abuse of office and the criminal self-enrichment using public funds, and also failure to discharge his constitutional duties as stipulated in the Constitution. So we are not planning to remove him, rather his planning is the one who is the accent of his problem.
Okay, well, you just confirmed that the State Assembly is making that move to impeach him, even though you started out on the contrary. So is it now an offense because the governor moved from the PDP to the APC and the deputy governor refused to go with him? That suddenly becomes an offense, an impeachable offense?
It's not the reason. I made it clear.
But you just started, you cited that the governor moved, the deputy governor did not move, and then the House is planning, listing 3 quote-unquote things that he's committed for which they want to impeach him.
I said the thing started initially very well, but under the deputy governor started to misbehave contrary to the provisions of the law, because his governor decided to change his political party. And the governor make it clear in the public in terms of his relationship with his deputy. He said because being him in the opposition may not change anything from him to participate in the government. But the deputy governor went contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. So I don't think...
By not changing his political party? I'm sorry, could you tell me what part of the law makes it an impeachable offense if you refuse to change your political party with the governor?
It's not the Constitution. I'm not referring to that because he refused to change. You understand? The House of Assembly is accusing him of abuse of office and criminal self-enrichment through using public funds. And also they charge him again with failure to discharge his constitutional duties as stipulated. You understand?
Abuse of office.
Yeah.
Can you define what abuse of office means?
The abuse of office is total disregard to the all provisions of the Constitution provided for him to act as deputy governor in the state. He used to normally lead the state without the permission of the governor. He don't normally participate in all the government policies and program activities. And he is using the public funds to enrich himself personally.
Was there a complaint from the office of the governor that the deputy governor was misbehaving?
No, it doesn't request the governor to complain. The House of Assembly has the power to initiate by 1/3 of the House of Assembly to sign any petition and present it to the Speaker for the serving of impeachment notice. So not necessarily must the petition emanate from the office of the governor or from the public.
So at the moment, these processes that you say that they are putting in place to get the governor out, why have you yourself seen any of those documents?
Yeah, the House of Assembly, the Chairman House Committee on Public Accounts, who is doubled as the Deputy Speaker of the House, presented the document to the Speaker, which was signed by all the House members except one, for serving the Deputy Governor with the impeachment notice.
Right. So I know you've worked closely with the governor before you became the publicity secretary of the APC in Zamfara State. So you know the deputy governor quite well. So at what point really did you notice this? Because if you say that it was just after the governor moved to the APC that you now started noticing this, isn't that a bit curious for you that that happened at that time? So was it at that moment really that the House started the process of impeaching him? Because in the statement that was put out, the House said, well, they had to wait for the period which the court gave before they now instituted the whole procedure, even though they said that they didn't have it in mind before until this year. So really, at what point did you start noticing that? Because the House says they didn't plan to all that while, that they just plan to now. But in the same vein, they said that they had to wait for the court procedures.
No, the whole issue started last week. I think it was Friday or Thursday when the issue of impeachment notice started. And the issue of impeaching governor or a deputy governor is only the House of Assembly that has such powers to impeach governor or deputy governor. And something very interesting, the governor, as you have mentioned, has no hand in the removal process of the deputy governor, that the House of Assembly is only performing its constitutional duties as an arm of government, which the House has the constitutional power to remove even the governor himself if the need arises. So I don't think for once to be still somewhere else and be accusing the governor or anybody, rather than the persons to start looking at the extent of the gross abuse carried out by the deputy governor himself. Because, as you are aware, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the deputy governor is supposed to deputize his governor in affairs of the state, within and outside, or any responsibility to be assigned by his governor in his capacity. So the deputy governor moves and travels away without the permission of his governor. He doesn't even attend any functions of the government. And he went to the extent of making some public pronouncements regarding the government and the people of the state, which maybe the House of Assembly find it necessary to use their constitutional powers to maybe do the right thing.
Right. Well, Mr. Idris, honestly, I mean, I've tried to understand this serious gross misconduct which you talked about, but essentially you've pegged it down to, going out of the state without the governor's permission. And I wonder, I mean, can't the deputy governor actually choose where to go to? He's not tied to the aprons of the governor. I mean, he has his life to live, essentially. And he also talked about not supporting the governor or being at functions. And from what I've seen most times, I mean, the governor is at one place, the deputy governor perhaps should be at another place representing the governor. That's how things are shared. You rarely find both of them together at the same place, except on rare occasions. So this still points to the fact, for me, that this is as a result of the deputy governor not moving with the governor to the APC. So let me just go back in time, because you are aware of what played out. Did the governor actually ask the deputy governor to move with him to the APC?
Come again.
Did the governor ask the deputy governor to move with him to the APC?
I don't have that knowledge because I'm not the governor or the deputy governor. You understand? But we see all the things we see on the peripheral grounds. So I don't have such knowledge, whether he contacted him or not. Maybe the deputy governor is in position to maybe shed more light on that.
Well, you are close to the governor, I dare say, clearly. But would this have been the case if the deputy governor had moved to the APC with the governor? Would you have thought about, or the House had thought about, this impeachment proceedings? Mr. Idris, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Please go ahead now.
I think how many deputy governors are in the same political parties with their governors and also at the end they have been impeached? For instance, in Kogi State, there's an example. The deputy governor and the governor, they are all in the same political party. So the issue of political party does not even arise in impeaching a governor or deputy governor. I think maybe what people need to understand, the simple something in clear terms is that when a governor commits an offense that is impeachable, the House of Assembly has power to impeach him. Likewise, the deputy governor. So the issue of difference belonging to different political parties is not even an issue for one to maybe say it's the reason to impeach the deputy governor.
Well, so I see that you mentioned Kogi State, so it raises a question. Did you study the notes of what played out in Kogi with the deputy governor at that time when the governor and his deputy had the issues? It looks like you actually studied how the things played out and you sort of are replicating it now in Zamfara State.
No, I'm just giving you an example because you said because they were belonging to different political parties. It's also an example I cited. So that for you to understand, there is not the issue of belonging to different political parties.
Okay, but did you say that the governor and the deputy governor in Kogi State are currently not in the same party?
Not now. Not now.
Then.
I'm saying that the former deputy governor, the former deputy governor of Kogi State, who is being impeached by the State House Assembly, and the subsequent appointment of the former chief of staff to the governor to occupy the office of the deputy governor.
Okay, so are you aware that the deputy governor's camp say that the House is going against the courts because there's a proceeding in the courts that says they should stay action until that particular matter is determined, and this action of the Assembly can be considered as contempt of court?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I had the deputy governor obtain an interim order from a federal high court Abuja. But this should not that the interim order has lifespan, which is 14 days, and have already elapsed, except it is being renewed. And the court or the interim order will not stay for life. So let them explain in clear terms whether the court order is being renewed or not.
All right, so back to some of the issues you raised, which you consider misconduct, gross misconduct on the part of the deputy governor. And I'd like to know, does the governor know about every trip that you go for?
As he's a political appointee, I must know. And even the deputy governor, the constitution informs the governor that whenever the deputy governor is going out of the state or of the country to formally write to the governor seeking for his approval before he travels anywhere in the country.
So the governor is aware of every trip you make. So when you dash to a place, you tell the governor.
When I'm working under his office, now I'm working with the political party. You understand? I'm not restricted by any provision of the law.
No, I'm talking about when you are an appointee. So imagine you want to go to run some errands. You have to tell the governor, right?
Yes, I must inform you. I'm going to abscond from the service from so date to so date.
So right after closing hours, the governor is still involved in your life.
See, the issue of after the working hours, what requires me to inform him is for me to be absent from the work I'm supposed to do. He is being elected as deputy governor. He's supposed to exercise the powers of the office of deputy governor.
So can you give me an example, if you don't mind, Mr. Idris? Can you give me an example of one of those?
I will esteem deputy governor come abscond his office for over 6 months without staying in the office and say you said he is not abusing the office.
Okay, so can you give me a precise example of one of those times that you said that the deputy governor absconded? Where did he go to, for what duration, if you're aware of any of such?
Even right now, it was only yesterday he returned back to the town. He spent about 1 month at the plant without even staying in the state. He's away.
I didn't get that. You said he spent 1 month at the where?
Away in Abuja.
Interesting. So, essentially, this is a done deal. Is the deputy governor going to be given fair hearing? Don't forget that there's still a court case, which the PDP has said, I mean, the House doing this while there's still a court case is sub judice, as it were. So, what is the plan, really, after this whole impeachment notice?
As a layman in terms of law, you understand? As far as I'm concerned, the interim order has already elapsed. It has only a 14 days lifespan, which has already elapsed since. He obtained the order since last year, and he's a lawyer. He knows this. And the interim order will not stay for lifetime or for a longer period. It's only within 14 days.
Well, his camp claims that the State Assembly were acting while he got the order from the court, and so that's why they deem it contempt of court. But then, within that 1 month, which he claimed that he spent in Abuja, are you aware if he was given any official duty for which he declined or didn't perform?
No, he was not given any official duty to perform on behalf of the government or the governor of Zamfara State. We are aware of that.
So why is that a crime then, if he's away and not turning down or declining to attend any official function, unless you're asking him to attend a party function for which he's not an APC member?
No, we don't ask him to attend our party activities. He belongs to the PDP and we belong to APC. So we cannot ask him to come and partake in our political activities.
So why is it an offense if he is away and then he wasn't asked to attend any official function, he didn't decline any official function? How is that an offense or gross misconduct?
You know, the issue of gross misconduct, as we are saying, he go contrary spending his office money, contrary to the provisions of the budgetary provisions made by the office. You understand? He made it clear that he spent the money to sponsor some student which is not provided in the budgetary provision of the deputy governor's office. And again, in the explanation is one of his 8 games that they used to monitor other people which is not provided in the provision of the budgetary provision of the deputy governor's office. The money were meant as well out on how to spend kobo by kobo of any of the of all the money in the office of the deputy governor.
Okay. All right, just hold on a minute. Let's listen to the deputy governor speaking about some of these matters some time ago in December 2021.
I think I'm very, very surprised because, as you recall, this year, June 29th, His Excellency Dr. Bello Matola Muraden left to PDP for APC. And in one of his remarks and statements, he's always bragged about PDP being empty. PDP has taken all the ESCO members. Everybody has followed him. A lot of the senators and former ministers, all of them went on board. And he left me, the deputy governor, with only a few people, and we're able to rebuild the party from the ground up. I'm surprised and appalled by the reaction that I saw today, rather I heard, that about 50 thugs came with machetes and burnt the location where we're about to have our state congress. And this location is actually a private residence. So I don't know how we're supposed to feel safe in this, in Gusau metropolis, and if this is the kind of security we can expect from the city of Gusau. I wonder what the people are experiencing in the rural areas. So I think this is a big issue that I think His Excellency, I'm calling out to him to come and apologize or point out the people who are responsible for these atrocities. If not, we hold him complicit in this act, and it will not be taken. Because I think internationally, everyone needs to know that Zamfara is not allowed to have opposition, which is mind-boggling. I'm surprised. If I'm just a deputy governor and I'm able to organize this, why are you threatened? I'm actually embarrassed at some point by this action. So I think in order for fairness, PDP should be allowed to carry out its party activities, and with the consent of the authorities, the police, the INEC, and SSS, they're all involved, they're all aware. And this thing is happening in Zamfara. I think this is highly appalling. Our priority is our party, because after the atrocities happened, I think I was called by the CP and the SDS directors to SSS to come and give a report. And we told them that, like, no, our priority is to make sure we hold our congresses. And that's what we've done here today. And that's what we're able to achieve here today. So after this, I think we'll go and speak to them and see why they were not able to protect our properties and why a private residence of a citizen of this state will be invaded by thugs. No. I think even the previous regime, we didn't experience things like this, and it's appalling, honestly.
Yeah, Your Excellency.
My message is one. We're trying to build a new PDP. In my remarks earlier, I stated how our elders, our fathers, our parents have established this party since 1998 to date. Right now, we're trying to build a new PDP where the youths have taken over, where the youths are in control, and where the youths have leadership. And with this, we're trying to go a long way. I think that's one of the things that threatens people, that we have so many young chairmen and so many young members of ESCO, and so many young people are supporting PDP at the moment. If you can recall, during my welcome, when I came back from Abuja after His Excellency changed parties, people could see on the streets. They were not thugs or jobless people on the road. There were people that are actually rejoicing that, yes, they can see a new light for the state. And with me at the helm, inshallah, I think we can succeed on that.
Sir,
I think we've already given the ruling party a very long break. Yes, I think about 6 months now is enough for them to rest. But like I said in my speech earlier, that now there's going to be opposition. If there's banditry and the government does not speak, does not support the people that are affected, we will speak. Schools are closed, our students have missed a whole term, and they're lacking behind in education. We are going to speak up, and we're not going to agree to this. In terms of agriculture, our people are not allowed to go to the farms. Adequate security is not being provided for them to be able to just go to their farms and come back. Schedules we should try and do something about it. Another infrastructure. The only infrastructure we're seeing in this state is in the government house. Right now, the opposition is going to stand up, and they should get ready to be on their toes. We are going to make them wake up. PDP has woken up. It's time for them to wake up as well. Like always, it's evident that I did not move to the APC because of this stand. My stand has always been one. Let us help the people of Zamfara State. That's our promise to them, and that's what we were sworn into office to come and do. But if we're not going in that direction, and you want us to change parties to another party, I don't understand the purpose of doing that. That's why I remain here, to fulfill my own oath. I swore an oath to taking care of people of Zamfara State, and inshallah, that's what I want to do. I stay in the state, and whatever I do it for my security. There are things that I cannot mention here, but it's evident that politics have started. What happened today is beyond evident that what's happening, and right now, internationally, everybody is going to know. What do you think happened to what? Alhamdulillah. I think it's just very, very important for everybody to know that the lives of every member of PDP is very, very important to us, and we're going to we are going to continue to grow to the best of our capacity and to protect our lives, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Idris, clearly, doesn't that establish a timeline and a history of him being hounded because the governor is threatened, that he's providing leadership, getting the crowd, and he's not? And now they want to use impeachment to, quote unquote, get him out of the way.
Well, as you can see, how will a governor, deputy governor, going to be accusing his governor if there is no gross misconduct and also total abuse of office? Is the government, is the sharing the certificate, and also he's supposed to, if there is any matter that needs the attention of the governor, he's supposed to come and tell me, not to be going into the public and making all such unnecessary and unguided statements, which is a total insubordination to the office of the governor, meaning the deputy governor, which I believe not even the governor, not even in the office of the governor or anywhere, even in the organization, if you notice someone who is trying to make a gross insubordination to the activities of the office, you need to discipline him. Maybe that is what the House of Assembly is trying to do. And the issue he raised that during their congresses, some thugs in various their venues, which is maybe is not in line with what is happening in the state. I'm very unfortunate their deputy vice chairman, whom they elected during their congress, later after he come out and vindicates the state government and the all progressives congress.
So Mr. Idris, in other words, are you telling us now that the governor sanctioned that decision by the House of Assembly to discipline him for insubordination?
I did not say so. I'm not saying the governor. I have already made it clear that the governor has no hand in the removal process of the deputy governor. He hasn't
spoken up against it. If he doesn't have any hand, he will speak up against it. We know these things, don't we?
No, how will he stop them from exercising their powers?
They are proofs of it.
There are different arms of government. He's an executive while they are the legislators. How do you expect him to intervene or to make anything rather than allow them to exercise their powers provided by the Constitution, by the 1999 Constitution as amended? It's a totally different thing from the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government. I don't think the governor to say, okay, you should stop them from doing their work that is provided in the Constitution. I don't think it's right.
In the script before, I mean, that it was not totally unexpected that this was going to happen. The moment the governor went to the APC and his deputy governor did not go with him, some people will say we already knew this was going to happen and this was going to be the next line of action and this was going to be the defense that will be put up, that they are separate arms of government. Indeed, they are separate arms of government. But if the governor does not believe that this is the way to go, surely, I'm sure he can say a word or two to say, this is how I feel about this particular matter, not necessarily stopping the legislature from doing what they want to do. Did you hear my question, Mr. Yusuf Idris?
No, come again.
I was saying that this particular scenario was not unexpected. A lot of people had already predicted that this was going to happen. The moment the governor defected late June last year and his deputy did not go with him, people already saw that this was going to happen eventually. You have defended the governor that he cannot stop the legislature from doing what they have now set about to do. But people will say that he hasn't spoken up in defense of his own deputy in the first instance, has he?
Well, the governor is entitled. Can you hear me?
Clearly.
Can you hear me? Well, everybody is entitled to his own opinion. The people who predicted, maybe it's their opinion, it's their personal opinion. But as far as the All Progressives Congress is concerned in Zamfara State and the governor, I don't think the governor has a right to stop the State House Assembly from performing or carrying out its constitutional duties as empowered by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So anybody is entitled to his own personal opinion. Anybody can make his own suggestions and say his opinion without anything. But as far as the All Progressives Congress is concerned in Zamfara State and the governor himself, I'm not speaking on his behalf, but I know he is not the one who initiated the impeachment process rather than the All Progressives Congress. But I know the Zamfara State Assembly, as every House of Assembly in Nigeria, is empowered to remove any governor or deputy governor. As I said earlier, even the House of Assembly can remove the governor himself if there is anything happening on the way.
I think it's important to state that we haven't disputed the powers of the State House of Assembly. Neither have we asked the governor to go and stop them. What we're saying is that the governor has been silent on the matter. He hasn't spoken up to say, oh, I don't think my deputy has done anything deserving of an impeachment. He hasn't said anything whether for or against his deputy. Silence has been the matter, which some people will say is in agreement with the decision of the State House of Assembly.
You should remember he is the chief executive of the state. And he is not the chief legislator of the state. You understand? He cannot perform his function and perform the functions of the House of Assembly. The House of Assembly are performing their functions. So the governor will not come and perform the functions of the State House Assembly. He's performing the executive arm of government functions, which is the chief executive of the state. And by the branches of him, and I
you keep going back. You keep going back. You keep going back to the functions. I mean, right now we're asking you questions and you're expressing your opinion. It doesn't mean that you're going to perform the functions of the State House of Assembly. You are saying that you believe that indeed that the deputy governor has committed some grievous error, well, I say error of judgment now, or has committed what it is that he's been accused of by the State House of Assembly. That is your opinion. I mean, it doesn't stop or, will I say, encourage the State House of Assembly in the work that they do. The question is, why hasn't the governor spoken up like you are currently doing?
The governor to say what? Madam, what do you expect him to say?
Let me ask you this. How big a problem has it been really for your party in the state, knowing that the governor defected to your party, the APC, and that the deputy governor did not go with him? How big a problem was that for the APC in Zamfara?
We don't have any problem. We are happy and satisfied with the governor being our party. And the party is becoming more stronger and more formidable under the leadership of the governor.
So it wasn't an issue for you that the deputy governor did not go with him and that he was leading the opposition in the state? Meanwhile, he was also in the State House?
No, it's his own opinion. And the Constitution empowers him to belong to any association or political party of his interest. So you cannot force someone to be in your party, rather for him to say, you ask him to maybe to become compulsory for him to join your party or not. That is his own right, and which we believe in everyone to exercise his constitutional provision.
So for you, the fact that he even chose to be in the PDP, despite the fact that his principal, the governor, had moved to the APC, wasn't gross misconduct?
We don't have anything with him. He is in PDP. We're in APC. The issue lies with the State House Assembly. It's not the party or the government. The issue of the House of Assembly raised, and they are following the due process as contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The House of Assembly members serve a notice of impeachment to the Speaker, which requires even 1/3 of the House of Assembly members sign the document to be presented to the Speaker, and the Speaker must issue and serve the notice to the Deputy Governor, which I believe even yesterday I read a friend's statement which was which was issued by the Chairman House Standing Committee on Information, Honorable Shamsuddin Zamfara, that they have even served the Deputy Governor with the notice of impeachment to read the office of the Secretary to the Government.
You say you have no problem with the Deputy Governor remaining in the PDP, but you certainly stand to benefit as a party when he eventually is impeached, assuming that eventually happens. Isn't that correct?
Actually, we are going to benefit if he is impeached, and we will be glad and happy as a political party. It's a political gain.
Yet, you say you have no problem.
Yeah, we have no problem being him in his own political party, because he may not lose the fortune of the party with anything.
Well, let's take this back to Lagos, gentlemen.
Well, thank you very much, Markwe. Mr. Idris, it's quite interesting to know that all of you were in the same party, the PDP, before the governor moved, and then the members of the assembly moved, lawmakers in the National Assembly also moved. So it's quite interesting to see the relationship that you had, which was blossoming at some point, now going sour. And as I keep referring to, you've known the deputy governor way before now, both at the executive level, working with the governor, and at the party level. Would you say he's a man that is, capable of all of these things that he's been accused of? Mr. Idris, did you get that?
Hello, can you hear me? Come again.
Okay, I said you've known the deputy governor at various levels, the executive arm of government, at the party level as well. I mean, you had a relationship before people decided to go their separate ways. By that I mean the APC. So, haven't known him for years, perhaps. Would you say he's a man capable of all that he's been accused of? Gross misconduct, misappropriation. In fact, you accused him of misbehaving at some point earlier on in this conversation. So do you know him as that kind of person?
He has the tendencies of doing such. By mere his activities in some extent.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Do you say that you've always known him to be a man of the character that he's been accused of or not?
He has the tendencies of doing such.
So why did the governor choose him as his deputy then, if he had that tendency?
I know him after the election. I don't know him before the election. I did not work with him closely until when he became the deputy governor. So by mere what is happening, sometimes he may have the tendencies of behaving the way the House of Assembly is accusing.
So, amidst all of this conversation is the security challenge in Zamfara state. And, the question would be how much of this is, is going to improve security? Because the deputy governor has actually spoken up against insecurity. In fact, he's visited some areas that were affected. And I imagine that may have made the governor look bad. So amidst all of this, is Zamfara still having a grasp on fighting insecurity in the state?
Well, as you know, the governor is doing his best to tackle the issue of insecurity. Though he inherited the entire situation in the state, because he inherited the entire mandatory and other criminal activities, but he is trying his best in order to arrest the situation, which I believe the citizens of the state are living witness. There is a tremendous success in that direction. Because when he came in on board, even by 6 o'clock, you cannot see any motorists in the state, but now you can move freely in the state capital to 2-4 without thinking of being attacked in the state capital or anything. Likewise, in most of the roads linking the state capital, before it's coming, they are unmotorable, and some of them are even closed down, which until when he came in as the governor of the state, he directed the reopening of all the roads and the marketplaces, which become accessible by all the people within and outside the state. And also most of the massive charges and what have you, before he's coming, were in a serious stage of...
So, Mr. Idris, All right, so we're winding down on this one now. Doesn't the governor himself spend months in Abuja?
He does. It's hardly for the governor. His normal stay in Abuja may not exceed 5 days. Except if there is anything of serious concern or needs his attention, either in the presidential villa or they are holding a meeting with his colleagues, the governors.
Because there are many who think otherwise from what you've just said now, but I guess there'll be more responses to that one. Well, we have to thank you for coming on this morning, Yusuf Idris, Publicity Secretary of the APC. And we did also reach out to the Deputy Governor and his team, but at the moment they were not able to make it on the program. Well, we're back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, you just saw that sensitization program, which Saga spearheaded at the markets here in the Federal Capital Territory. And we did bring to you a review of the Abuja Inquirer earlier in our paper review segment, which also focused on the Fct Council Polls. Now, these council polls, one of the very few which will be happening this year, conducted by INEC. There's also going to be the elections in Ekiti, and I believe Ondo as well, much later this year. All of them a precursor to the big deal in 2023. We'll be seeing many more candidates present themselves. Yes, we're already in the season of declaration of people who we think could declare. A lot of speculations going on at the moment as well. But some people have actually come out to say, hey, I'd like to run, I'd like to be president in 2023. I'd like to carry my party's flag in 2023. The big question is, what sort of candidate should voters be looking for? Don't forget the warning of former governor of the Central Bank and former emir of Kano talking about Nigeria being on extra time, and that people who are going to be running for office in 2023 had better be careful, better know what it is that they're putting themselves up for. So knowing where we currently stand with our indices, what sort of leaders should Nigerians be looking out for? Joining us this morning to discuss and shed light on this, we have with us Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, who is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. You're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you.
It's already February, and I will...
Actually, the year is about to finish, without consulting us.
Did you just say about to finish? It's only February, Dr. Ikechukwu. But the way politicians have been going about it, you would think we're in June already.
No. You think actually we're in 2023.
Oh.
There's nothing else they're talking about, and that's a matter generating some concern.
So since they have, decided to train our attention on politics and nothing else, what should we be doing, looking out for? Because really, I mean, it's all in our best interest, looking at where we currently are, that we begin to look out for the kinds of leaders whom we know, will be better for the future of Nigeria.
Well, what kind of leaders? It must be people who understand what the issues are. At the level of the economy, at the level of national values, at the level of national security, at the level of Nigeria's relevance in international affairs, and at the level of a holistic conception of sustainable development. Now, coming to the specific candidates, there's no mystery, there's no magic. Simple questions. If you're coming out to contest for the position of president, what is your track record? If, for instance, you've been a party leader, what kind of trajectory, what kind of tradition did you live in the party? Let's suppose a former party chairman wants to contest. How did he run that political party? That question must be answered. Was there party democracy? What was the criteria used for determining all sorts of things? Were you having regular membership, recruitment drive, and all the rest of it?
Do we usually use this kind of criteria?
No, we don't. You said, what should we look for? So if a governor, for instance, is coming out, and that's why I think they're going to have the greatest problems. Now, we've had 7 years of this government. Within that 7 years, some people have been governor for 7 years or for 4 years. Questions to ask. Within this period, how secure has your state been? What were the indices you met in terms of internally generated revenue, developmental projects, school enrollment, security? These are details that we use to assess whoever is coming out. So if this is how you performed in your state, why should we give Nigeria to you? If this is how you performed or you're performing in your state, that's the reason we should give Nigeria to you. So it's one thing to declare interest, to jump up and down and talk. We're raising issues of capacity, issues of global relevance. You've been in public office, you've held position. We've had controversies in the last couple of years. What were your views on them? During NSAS, what did you say? What have you said about the former header clashes? What did you say when governors from one part of the country took a position and another took? That will make us see whether you're a nationalist. Those are the issues to consider. So it's not sufficient for somebody to say he thinks he could or would want to be president. Everybody has a right to think. A madman, for instance, could think he's the king of England. You wouldn't argue with him. Reality check. That's what Nigerians should look out for. So I have no worries about there being a myriad of aspiring presidential candidates. More should come out. A distillation process will eventually take place. And that's the issue. And I think the concern you expressed in that intervention as I was speaking is that, okay, look, this is not what we've been doing all along. Yeah, that is correct. But it's about time we did it.
Now, some people say that that has never really been in our power. I mean, it's never really been in the power of the electorate as to what sort of candidates are really thrown up. That is the mandate of the political parties. And we really do not have any way of deciding that unless we are in the political parties. And even for those who are in the political parties, there's a lot of disenchantment, and sometimes you hear a lot of murmurings as to how things are being conducted within political parties. A lot of people, it's not exactly democratically done, as the case might be, but do you think that given where we are and given the problems that we currently face, that things might change within political parties?
I suspect things are likely to change, not because the parties desire change, but because they may be forced to adapt to new paradigms. What do I mean by that? If you look at the politics of the last 8 years, let's just take the 8 years, can we say any of the parties has been actually democratic? Internal democracy in the parties, if we are being honest, does not exist in the two dominant parties and in the others aspiring also to replace them. Then you look at the processes for positions, where governors are appointing an extra 4,000 SAs or PAs, all in preparation for 2023, where there's no performance, where members of the party don't meet, where only big people meet, and the only time you have party activity is if there's an election and there's money to share. To that extent, we can say that, look, we are hamstrung, the people don't matter. But you see, there's also a ferment going on. The parties themselves are losing grip. The big boys and girls are now finding it more and more difficult to work out a consensus because greed, desperation, has become the only legal tender across most of the parties. To that extent, some form of internal implosion or attempted internal implosion might lead to reconfigurations. So I see a situation where the parties will be constrained to act differently, not because they want to, but because they have to. That's what it's looking like. And a lot of people think that 2023 is tomorrow morning. It isn't. It's actually a long way from now in terms of real politics. Anything can happen in 1 month. And you're talking about having 12 months plus before that election.
Do you think that they could have given an indication of what could happen? I mean, we saw the big debate before the Electoral Act was eventually turned back by the president, and how the National Assembly reluctantly, well, they say that they have given the president everything now, and the CSOs have given the president 7 days, which has expired today, to sign the Electoral Act. That is yet to materialize. We're still waiting on the president to do that, but the big item, or the little item, which caused big controversy was the issue of direct primaries. And a lot of people said, oh, perhaps that would have given an indication of the seriousness of political parties to do things differently this time around. Because part of the reason why that was criticized by political parties was that they didn't have a database, a credible database to be able to conduct true direct primaries, which is a problem, isn't it?
It is a problem, but the question is, why don't you have a database, number one? So why don't you go ahead and create one since the rules have changed? Look, if you're a political party, you should have a list of your members. If you have a list of your members, those are the people you call out during elections. So when you don't have that, is INEC to blame? Is the federal government to blame? I think it's a shame. Somebody, for instance, supposing somebody comes and says he wants to take a nominal role of a staff of Channels TV, and is on the basis of that they will be invited for lunch at the Hilton, and you say, no, cancel the lunch because we don't have nominal role. That's actually what they did. It doesn't make sense. Well, the real issue in terms of real politics is that everybody is seeing clearly that we have developed a culture of what you call a dog keeper's logic. I want to hunt, let me hire your dogs. So I want to contest, I'll pay you for the candidates, for the delegates under you. That's at one level. At the second level, for the delegates, that's their bazaar or Christmas season. That's when they do their trading, because you can't go as a delegate and come back empty-handed. So an economy has arisen around party primaries. And also, the negative notion of godfatherism is best nurtured by this method which the governors want to retain. And it's a mystery and a shame that those who are presumed to be elected to represent us are the ones who took very strong positions against a law that will have expanded the democratic space. So, yeah, I understand why that has to happen. This is struggle for power, not struggle for leadership. In fact, struggle for positions in order to enjoy the privileges. Because if I have control of the delegates and I can determine the primaries, I can then ensure that my son-in-law replaces me. I can determine who will be the governor, and when I put him, I will choose how many of the commissioners. I will choose the commissioner of finance, what do you call it, works, what you call the juicy ministry. So I'll be running the government by proxy. I'll determine how state funds will be created, and I'll create a kind of dynasty where you have a growing number of elite living off the state and the people suffering. That's why budgets will be read year after year, and no index of improvement in the welfare of the people.
And on it goes.
It goes. And the controversy over this bill is actually one of the most recent substantive indictment of the political class in Nigeria. It is a shame, in my view, and I may be mistaken, but I think it's a shame that what should have opened up the space is they're going up and down with it. It's about how will this favor me. I can understand that.
Were you disappointed when they eventually added other options to the bill as now being passed by the National Assembly?
Quite frankly, I was neither appointed nor disappointed. We must be frank and realistic. If the bulk of people who are presumed political leaders are alleged, correctly in some cases I gather, to have gotten to office as a means of improving their income and status financially, they're actually doing what they went to do when they do things like this. The mistaken assumption on our part is the belief that, like some people said, we need to go and organize something for members of the National Assembly to understand their job. They do. It's just that some of them have a different intention. So about being disappointed, I wasn't entirely surprised. I was hoping it would sail through, but looking at it, the interests at play are not interests driving core national development issues. They're not interested driving citizen welfare issues. They're not interested focused on genuine democratic expansion of the democratic space. So when the thing began to tilt the way it did and got held and then got returned, I wasn't surprised at all.
Well, let's take a break at this moment. We'll be asking, despite that, despite what has happened, he said he wasn't surprised by it, whether there is still a way to ensure that the people do have a say in the sort of candidates that eventually emerge. Please stay with us. Dr. Oke Kechuku is still with us here in the studios, and we're talking about getting the sort of leaders which we truly desire to take us to at least a better future. Now, even if you say that the current situation where we are is good, there's always something better for us.
That could come, yeah.
Isn't there? Well, let me quickly flip this to Lagos. Now, before I do, let me ask you this. Really, do you really see a way? I mean, considering, I know that, political parties have done a membership drive, but if people are still reluctant to be identified as partisan, do you see a way that people can still have an influence on what goes on within political parties?
I do. As we approach, you can see that without being unduly pessimistic, things are not looking very exciting on the front of economy, security, and among other things. So a lot of people want to see something different. And as we head closer to 2023, chances are that other forces will be thrown up. Chances are there will be greater political activism. We've seen the number of organizations and individuals saying they're suing the government for one thing or the other. We've seen state governors taking up issues. Imagine that all the governors in Nigeria do what Wike did about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Governance at the lower level is the business of local government chairman, ward chairman, council chairman, and it flows that way in the pyramid to the government.
You mean in terms of the
directive on illegal
refineries?
Now, there's banditry everywhere. There's all kind of misconduct going on in places with substantive public office holders from the governor all the way down. Nobody's doing anything about it. Now, my suspicion is that as we get closer to 2023, and as there's greater activism, Anambra State took the federal government to court the other day. I think Wike won a case on a second one. Now, if that begins to happen, you find that more and more of the citizenry will be emboldened to get a suspicion that, oh, we can actually speak. And chances are that the presumed monopoly of the two dominant parties may suffer shipwreck, which will force them to either begin to recalibrate and democratize or probably succumb to other forces. So I have the hope and expectation that the further development of citizen consciousness will lead to, if you like, greater positive mileage in the politics leading up to 2023.
Let's flip this to Lagos now. I know my colleagues have questions for you.
Yeah, well, Dr. K, yes, in a democracy, a lot resides with the people. They actually should be in the front lines when some of these things, depending on how it swings really. But how much power does the electorate here really have?
They have no power in the kind of political situation we find in Nigeria. None at all.
Wow.
The godfathers have power, the financiers of the party have power, and the stakeholders who meet and then inform the people have power. But that's what it is at the moment. I believe and I see that events are building up, just like I said a moment ago. Now, imagine, let's suppose that some of the things Oludo is saying in Anambra begins to happen. What it will mean is that the people will become stronger components of the political process. So while I agree completely with you that as we speak, the people do not have power, I'll make two observations. Number one, it hadn't always been so. In the past, long before the era of military rule, there was some greater perception of citizen involvement. 1979 to 83 politics, you could see 2 people, 4 people, a complete hall, people arguing against each other purely on party basis, based on their party manifesto. This one is telling you, my party is better because this is what it promises Nigerians, which your party does not promise. Now, that's citizen power. That's why they will vote. That's why in 1979 and 83, some people will make sure they cancel everything, take every measure to take part in the elections. Now that has disappeared. Apathy has arisen because the people see they are irrelevant. Now, the degree of pain, misgovernment, insecurity, suspicion, and allegations of a lack of internal democracy in parties, all of that is creating disenchantment. And what usually follows disenchantment for those who are serious is an attempt to win back the disenchanted. If you don't try to do that, you lose more people. So I am quite hopeful, despite the fact that this indices may seem to be suggesting a terminal perception that, oh, there's no hope. On the contrary, I'll repeat again, 2023 is too far for the kind of optimism and triumphalism many of the aspirants and the parties are putting on the table at the moment. I do not see many of them, some of them traveling halfway to that date. So there's no need for hysteria at the moment. Events will take, if you see somebody who wants to go to Maiduguri from Lagos and he has a full tank and there's no filling station on the road he has taken, he will not get to Maiduguri. Don't quarrel with him in Lagos. You just go to Otukpa and wait for him with a meat pie when he would be about to fall unconscious because he's not going to get to Maiduguri. Now, that's likely to be the fate of many of the aspirants. They will learn from it. The political process will learn from it. They'll spend some money. Some people will start business with it, and life goes on.
Well, Dr. Ikechukwu, I was just checking Twitter, and a number of people are listening to you right now, which kind of dovetails into the conversation you just had with Chamberlain now in response to the question he raised about the people. And so it only begs the question of one of the critical conversations in leadership talk, and that is followership. Now, we have a challenge on our hands in which the citizenry have a huge trust deficit between the leadership and the led. Now, the led themselves, just as you have said now, I don't even know where we want to place them now. What really, in your opinion, should be their role going forward? We've spent 23 years or thereabout into this fourth republic of ours, and this is where we are. And just as you said, godfathers have powers, political leaders have powers, and all of that. What powers really do the followers have? Does that mean that their votes don't count, whether as members of a political party or as citizens of Nigeria electing or recruiting people to do the job of leading them?
Well, the first power they need to exercise is the power to make the correct judgment. I want to contest the elections. Another person, Chamberlain, wants to contest the elections. We are from the same area. That's where the people know us the most. And if I have a lot of money and I distribute it, and Chamberlain is a better candidate, and they allow me to win because I put down money, and they don't take Chamberlain who will actually deliver real service to them. You see, they've paid up front for their misfortune. They've mortgaged their future. They have nothing to complain about. So the first thing is what you might call developing the right type of consciousness among the citizenry. And it doesn't have to take a political party. Every town in my area has a town union. If the town unions, if the women organizations, if the registered platforms of power, youth organizations, begin also to take positions on the right kind of person they would want to lead, it will make sense. That's why, look, we must go and vote so that this other person doesn't become our leader. Because after the election, you will not see him. This has been his trajectory. This is how he made his money. You see, for as long as that does not happen, the followership becomes largely responsible for its own misfortune, because nobody goes to rig elections by himself. Nobody carries 50 ballot boxes because he's contesting. People get paid to do that. And when you can't get anybody to pay, the paradigms have changed. Now, getting that to happen is the issue. For as long as people make the wrong demands of public office holders, for so long will the problem remain.
Well, Dr.
I get into office,
my
I have
apologies.
In 7 months, I built a house worth 250 million. I now have 6 cars, many of them exotic, sometimes 13, and everybody is clapping, everybody is worshiping me. The young people are saying, I want to be like that man. Religious leaders revere me, give me front seat in the church,
well,
allow
Dr.
me to come
all
in
the
with
issues
guns
you're raising now, if you don't mind me butting in.
Me, it is desecration and blasphemy consolidated. With those kinds of values, you've lost the society, you've lost the people. Imagine that office holders are not allowed to walk into places of worship with full AK-47 and the paraphernalia, that when they come into churches and mosques, they don't start by shaking hands. You see, that way religious authority gets restored.
Well, Dr. Ekechukwu, just one question, if you don't mind me butting in very quickly, and perhaps by way of even lumping it together in a way. Poverty, so many people have said, even before the last elections, has been weaponized against the people. On the one hand, the citizenry, just as you have said,
Yep.
they just want to live by the day. And some of these people go into the political parties perhaps for the same reason. Okay, there is always someone who wants to give them money to do one thing or the other. Is there any chance, we were talking about the other time about funding politics and all of that, is there any chance of reversing that trend of the tremendous impact or influence of money on our politics and democracy?
Reversing is one thing, modification is another. The argument today is stomach infrastructure, that the only thing you have in your stomach is what you've eaten, so you better go ahead and eat. I can understand it against the background of the poverty, but I can't justify it. There could also be a counter-narrative. The person who is giving you money today to vote for him is not giving you money because he loves you. That money is very likely your money that he stole earlier. Even if it isn't, why should the money he gave you today determine the rest of your future? So even if you must collect money from him, is your conscience, the value of your conscience, is it 5,000 or 2,000 as the case may be? I don't think your conscience is that cheap. So if you would take the step of taking the money, which I won't advise, please don't take the further step of choosing somebody you know does not represent any good at all to stand forth in your name. That even in the village, there are people whom the family will not allow to represent them in the village square. Now, that's a counter-narrative that could begin to buy, endorsement progressively. But the extreme idealistic position of being preachy, being judgmental, you're a fool when you take money, even if it is true, which it is also the person's level of consciousness. You have to gradually nurture him or her out of it. Not make a long speech, tell us the advantages of not taking money, and everybody will clap and you go away. That is not going to impact the community. Everybody is from a community. That's where the work should begin. That's where shocks can take place. That's where, despite you saw the case in Anambra where some women said, no, we will not take the money. There were also places where they took the money and still did not vote for the candidate who distributed the money. Now, that is how that can work. But if we make it the thing we normally do at the national level, national campaign for political consciousness or values or whatever, money will be spent, there will be news reportage, but impact will come as close as possible to zero. That's what we should avoid.
What I'd like us to do, again, is to enumerate the steps for those who are watching this morning, who are saying, as citizens, we're interested in this process and would like to be able to mobilize. And we've seen a few mobilization campaigns already going on by CSOs, asking people to register. And one person, when you register, get 5 more people to register. That we need to increase the number of people who are registered and who eventually go out to vote. But beyond that, I'd like for those who are listening this morning who are saying, I'd like to put an eye on what is currently going on.
And I influence the results.
Exactly. How do you think I can influence the results?
3 major steps, maybe 4. Number 1, ensure that you're a registered voter. Number 2, ensure that where you register on the day of the election, you can access it. Many traders register near the market. They are totally disenfranchised because on the day of the election, there's curfew. Their votes don't matter. They will be sitting in their houses, drinking stout and telling you who will win. So vote, make sure you have a contiguous polling booth. Then on the day of the election, go out and vote. Having voted, don't just go away. Wait for the result. When the results are announced, then it's announced there, make sure you have a copy of it. You're armed. But beyond that, there are other polling booths, isn't it? So create, before the elections, create some kind of a network and solidarity within your area. Your polling booth is 750 meters away from my own polling booth. So let communities begin to work in their own interest. Meet, decide. After the election, let us quickly compare notes. Fortunately, we don't need to see. I'll text you what you've got. You text me what I've got. You get some other people. Now there's a consolidation of data across all the contiguous areas, so they'll have an idea of the kind of thing to expect. Now, these measures are important. It creates authenticity on the spot. Even if it's rigged later, there's a basis for engagement. Now, that's what people must do. It's not about giving motivational talk about how to choose good leaders. Oh, I'm on Twitter. I have 500,000 followers. Where are you going to that they are following you? You don't know your village. Some of those following you will be lying on their beds and looking at the ceiling. So this form of ethereal activism in an environment that's thoroughly rotten is part of the delusion of many of those who either say they're activists or they say they are contesting elections. They forget there are no polling booths on Instagram or Facebook or on the internet. Polling booths are in communities.
Well, we'll see what eventually happens, whether that will change. Maybe you also have to win on some social media platforms for you to become a leader.
Social media
but
president.
We don't know. Well, thank you so much for coming on this morning. Dr. Oke Ikechukwu is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy and speaking to us here in our Abuja studios. Well, let's quickly go to Lagos now. I'm sure that we have a special report. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, indeed. Just to let you know, the Evercare Hospital, Lekki, has now commenced open heart surgeries, spine surgeries, and they have also conducted just going to go ahead and move up on that one. And they've also gone ahead and conducted spine surgeries and advanced first of its kind pediatric surgery in the country. Now, according to the CEO, Rajiv Bhandari, the healthcare standards of the multi-specialist and tertiary care facility are driven by innovation in ensuring quality healthcare delivery.
Within a period of 1 month, Evercare Hospital, Lekki, has recorded 3 groundbreaking moments. Open heart surgeries, spine surgeries, and an advanced first-of-its-kind pediatric surgery were all carried out at this state-of-the-art facility. The hospital's way of informing the public that they are more than capable to provide quality and accessible health care to patients.
Another milestone for us is the commencement of spine surgeries in the facility, with specialties in interventional spinal injections, decompression, and instrumental fusion surgeries. We have also recently carried out an advanced first-of-its-kind pediatric surgery. This was the first laparoscopic thoracoscopic repair of esophageal atresia. This was done on a 3-day-old infant with a first-of-its-kind technique with this surgery in Nigeria and West Africa.
In our country and actually in West Africa, we usually make incisions on the chest wall of these patients, and we access the esophagus to repair the atresia. This is very devastating for the baby who is newly born and cannot swallow his or her own saliva. This will lead to a division of the muscles of the chest, after which this patient will have a turbulent post-operative period usually, and when they make it, they tend to have chest wall deformities. However, with minimal access, which we did at Evercare, there is little or no telltale signs that this patient had surgery.
The 165-bed multi-specialty tertiary care private hospital is now fully equipped with modern infrastructure and surgical equipment.
We started last year with surgeries which was done on the lumbar spine for patients who develop infection in the spine, which causes instability of the spine and severe pain, preventing them from ambulation. Another case which was done is a very interesting case when the patient came with a difficulty of walking and using the hands, cannot feed herself, cannot hold anything in her hands. We came and removed whole vertebra in a cervical spine, which was fully filled with cancerous cells. Then we took the bone from the patient pelvis bone and inserted in the cervical spine and put a plate and screws to hold the spine together. The surgery went extremely well. The patient was discharged from the hospital in 1 week.
There is also assurance from the medical team to provide exceptional care for patients.
We have all the infrastructure which is required for the care in ICU. We have that. We have trained our staff to look after these patients, and the good results will only come with full teamwork. We have excellent physiotherapy department.
One of the greatest challenges patients have about cardiac surgery is they've heard that, look, this is a major surgery and people die, and people can die from it. Everywhere in the world, that fear is always there because you have to be connected to a bypass machine. So the bypass machine takes over the function of the heart and the lungs. So we stop the heart, stop the lungs, and the bypass does everything, and then we can now work on the heart. And when we finish, we start the heart again, return the function of the heart and the lungs back to the patient. So when I was discussing this with the patient, I remember vividly, this man, he broke down and started crying. And the wife was consoling him. He said if he dies, he does not know what the wife would do because the wife can't live without him. After the surgery, 5 days later, I think he was discharged. And yesterday we still saw him. He's doing well. He's gone back to work. The beauty of this is that people can return to their normal life after the surgeries.
With the clinical milestones achieved by Evercare Hospital Lekki within the short period of its commissioning, the healthcare facility is on its way to transforming the traditional model of treatment by ensuring quality improvement.
So, I mean, that's cheery news for the health sector, not just in Lagos, in Nigeria at large. But we have yet another cheery news, and this one is on security. We reported the kidnapping of Reverend Father Joseph Danjuma Shekari yesterday. But the good news today is that he's been released, and that's according to a statement from the Catholic Diocese of Kafanchan. And I like the first paragraph. It says, "With hearts filled with joy, we raise our voices in a symphony of praises as we announce the return of our brother, Reverend Father Joseph Danjuma Shekari, who was abducted by armed persons at Rectory at St. Monica's Catholic Church. That was on Sunday, February the 6th. He was released at 10:30 p.m. on Monday. That's yesterday. So good news coming from Kaduna State this morning.
So from then on to news you can also use. If you are on the streets, you need to pay some attention to this, because in Lagos, there's a huge tailback of traffic. This is a backlog of motorists who were queuing up at that filling station, as you could see there, to try and get some fuel. And we understand that this has caused a huge tailback, way beyond Burger. That's affecting traffic inward Lagos now, up until I think it's gone beyond Magboro. They tell us it's even further than that, so you may just need to be careful. You know how some of these things happen, such that even if the traffic queues on one lane, it always spills into both lanes for traffic inward Lagos. Remember, we had also cited that at the beginning of the sequence of the program today about some of these things, and now it's here.
Well, this is just one fuel station. Incidentally, I was at this fuel station yesterday. There's similar traffic, though not so much. At least it didn't cause such huge traffic as this now, but almost every single one. But this now, it definitely is something of
So there you go. That is now traffic coming inward Lagos. And this is another view of the traffic inward Lagos. So you can see the lane on your right if you're coming in where they divert to that fuel station. So the one you see on the left are those who are just moving on into Lagos. And so, but you can see the traffic outward Lagos there also just appears free at the moment. So these are live images coming through to you from Lagos about the current fuel situation in Lagos, the Otedola Bridge area. That is the fuel station just directly opposite the Otedola Bridge area of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, for those who are familiar with it. So that is the artery linking outward Lagos and inward Lagos. So if you have any reason whatsoever to make use of those roads, please be advised. Okay, so that said, well, we have to just let it go at this point in time. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain also.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Well, we're looking forward to some response from the authorities responsible for ensuring we have petrol. I think that the fuel queues are questions by themselves. Thank you for watching today. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.